Hey, welcome back to my daily scrolling of science tube. I've got another biochemical novel of a very important molecule. That's ATP. That's adenosine triphosphate. So I've 3D printed this model, and what's really cool about this, we can actually see how ATP looks and what its 3D structure looks like, right? So what's cool about this model? Let's take a look. There's three main components of ATP. This first part over here, that's the adenosine part or the adenine part. Adenine is a nucleotide base, and so as a nucleotide base, that's basically one of the four base pairs or bases of DNA. That's connected to this ribose sugar right here. So that's the central sugar, and that central sugar connects it to these three phosphate atoms over here, or phosphate groups over here. And so obviously we have carbons, the red atoms are oxygen, the blue atoms are nitrogen, the yellow atoms are phosphorus. And so this molecule over here now, what makes this so energetically potent? Well, if we kind of look at ATP, this has minus 30.5 kilojoules kilojoules of free energy we can use for catalyzing and running metabolic reactions. And so when we add ATP to our food, when we break down ATP, and how do we break it down? We hydrolyze this phosphate off, and when instead of 3 phosphates, we now have only 2 phosphates if we break this phosphate off. That becomes adenosine diphosphate. Then that releases minus 30.5 kilojoules of energy. Then when we add an inorganic phosphate to ADP, that requires energy. So we're making ATP. Then that's how we regenerate the ATP molecule. So we actually recycle this molecule many, many times every day, because our food, we don't consume ATP. We consume carbohydrates, fatty acids, and proteins, and then our bodies convert that energy into ATP that we use to store for our metabolic reactions, and that's how we basically survive, because one of the main characteristics of life is we have to undergo energy transduction reactions. Our typical diet, we're going to consume about 11,700 kilojoules of food every day. That translates to about 2,800 calories, food calories, on the US system. Now, that 11,700 kilojoules of energy, let's just assume we have a thermodynamic efficiency of about 50%, because we're not perfect, right? So that means we need 5,850 kilojoules of that energy that ends up in ATP, right? Now, let's say it takes about 50 kilojoules of energy to make ATP from our adenosine diphosphate. So we have to add this phosphate. Now, where do we make ATP from? We can make ATP from the glycolytic pathway, make a little bit from the citric acid cycle. Most of that ATP is generated in the mitochondria from the electron transport chain, where we consume a fairly large, we produce a large amount of ATP from the F0, F1 ATP synthase. That's literally why the mitochondria is called the powerhouse of the cell. I think we've all heard that in high school chemistry or biology in some way, shape, or form. So we've got 50 kilojoules of energy we need to synthesize one molecule. We're getting about 5850 kilojoules from our food input. So let's just divide 5850 divided by 50. That's 117 moles of ATP that we need every day, right? So this is equivalent, 117 moles is equivalent to about 65 kilograms, right? That's the weight of a decent sized person. That's a lot. We need a lot more ATP than we have. How much ATP does the human body have at any given time in one day? It's only about 50 grams. So where does that come from? That means we have to recycle this stuff 1,300 times per day. We're adding inorganic phosphate to ADP, making ATP, and then we're removing inorganic phosphate from ATP, making ADP. So we're constantly recycling that 1,300 times per day. And that enables us to do everything we need. That requires energy. If we're running, jogging, cycling, thinking, just breathing, and just surviving, all of that requires ATP. So this is probably one of the most important molecules in the human body and in other organisms as well. So if you found this kind of interesting, if you like this video, go ahead and hit the thumbs up button down below. Feel free to leave a comment. That's always helpful. If you kind of like some of this content, maybe you want to see some other metabolic reactions explained, go ahead and hit that as well too. And go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Hit the subscribe button down below, hit the little bell icon, and you'll get updated whenever we post new content to this channel. So thanks for watching, and I will see you again on the Science Tube.